Hi, this is Umitencho drawing more characters. What you see me doing right now is drawing Wartortle from Pokemon. Now, one of the unusual things is you normally start with the eyes, but I started with the outside features like the ears and its head. But it went very well. I didn't have to start all over, so I'm glad that I was able to get that done. Let's see here. I kind of wish I made the head a bit more rounder, but it's fine. An interesting thing about Wartortle design-wise is its ears are just kind of very, very interesting. If you look at Blastoise and Squirtle, they just don't really follow that theme of like kind of wingish kind of ears. And as you can see here, also that I found is that he has blushed cheek marks, so there's a lot of blood flow around the cheek areas. And I was also very shocked to find claws for some reason. I don't really know. I guess it's because I never really paid attention to Squirtle. Among the three starters, I always paid attention to the Bulbasaur and the Charmander evolution line. So I never really cared to just really study or look at design wise. Now, one of the things I started doing here is I started to do a little bit of shading on the underbelly of the shell, even though it's more of a whitish kind of brownish, just to sort of give it a little contrast here. And one of the things I do with shading is with the darker parts, I'll shade it first, and then I'll go back over and shade all over again and sort of make it all. That's how I achieve a darker shade as well. And obviously the light source is coming from the top right, if I am looking at this correctly. No, top left. I gotta remember that this is a flipped video. And then one of the things I do to help with the blending end of the shading is I'll go over eraser and just not completely erase it, but just sort of make it look less like lines or something like that. See me here shading the feet. Yep. And I did the feet in two different methods. I did a line border, and usually you want to erase outside the border so it doesn't show up, or you could just do what I did with the, I guess, our left side. You could just wing it. And this is me reinforcing the line so that while I'm blending in the shade, I can make the outline pop. So that's our Wartortle. Now, next here is a character you may not know. It's known as the Statue of God from Solo Leveling. I can't say leveling, but very much a nightmare fuel character. I was surprised when I started working on this drawing just how much work it is to do the drawing. But hey, you don't improve if you don't take on the challenges. You know, you learn new techniques, and you really figure out where you have to improve when you do stuff that is outside your comfort zone. So what I did here is obviously I started with the eyes. I worked a little bit on the cheekbones. And for a second there when I was doing the eyes, he reminded me a little bit of Mariui from Bleach with those eyes. But this character is much worse. And this is drawing one of his more infamous scenes or panels in the comic, where he's just giving this deathly smile like, I am just going to mess your stuff up. Also, I'm very happy at how the nose came out. One of my biggest weaknesses drawing are noses and mouths, and I am very happy that I didn't have to fight with the nose for this particular drawing. I did have to go over a little bit more with the mouth, but I'm also very satisfied with how the mouth will go out. So let's see here. One of the ways I did the mouth, especially when there's a lot of teeth, is pick a tooth, and use that as the reference if you lose your place about where the tooth is, and just go back And that's what I did. I looked back at the photo with the reference tooth. Maybe you put a little mark on there to sort of mark what the reference tooth is, so that you can focus less on trying to get the correct number and more on getting the correct shade on this. And in this case, as you can see, I had to sort of well, I messed up the cheeks, or not the cheeks, but the chin. So I will have to go back and sort of redo that, and sort of not get frustrated. I worked on the top half of his forehead, top half of his face, the forehead, and some of his outside lines, and I just figure that once I get some more of that done, I'll just go back and draw that again. Huh. And I think one of the hardest things here is someone had noted on with the drawing, is that it can very much make it look like he's actually scared rather than he just smiling that he's just about to mess your stuff up. And as you can see, I'm working on some of the lines. There were lines on his eye. On the shading of his eyes. I did that last, obviously, for the eyes. I did some of the shading, and I'm done with it. This one here is another character. This would be Invincible from, I believe, what's the comic? Actually, no, it's Image Comics. I very much like this character or his story. It's because I don't really, when it comes to the prototypical Superman type heroes, I don't really like my characters to be too goody two shoes like Superman is, which is why Superman is not my favorite DC superhero, because I find him a bit too cheesy. And even with like the Injustice universe, where it's like the evil Superman, I just find him just ridiculous, to be honest, which is just I find Superman to be too on the extremes at times. Now obviously I worked with the eyes first here. I had some difficulty doing the chin, but it's just a matter of not making it too big. Obviously he is turning his head, so I'm really mostly drawing his back with a little bit of his pectoral showing. You can see here I'm drawing his hands. I can definitely say he's one of the characters that has 5 fingers. I think it was a Danny Phantom drawing where he had 4 fingers. Like they forgot to put the 5th finger on one of his hands, so it's kind of weird. He had like 9 fingers in the drawing, but it is what it is. I'm very happy how the shading worked out on this. I tend to fail when I do that type of shading where I draw out the border and then I try to draw it in. But I think it went well. Though one thing I would do with this drawing is I would go back over the hair and darken the hair some more though. That's one thing I noticed looking at this, how I did it. So here I'm going ahead and sort of put the contrast with his his costume. I believe it's black, blue, and yellow for this particular costume. So I did obviously black, and then for the blue I shaded in gray, and then for the yellow I believe I left alone. I believe I left it alone. Shading his face a little bit, and then there you go. Put in some more details that I missed, and there's your Invincible. So let me see here. Who is our next character here? Oh yes, Major from Ghost in the Shell. Very interesting. She was very hard to find a reference photo to draw, because a lot of them had like 3D art in. I was going to originally do her sort of leaning on an rail, but when I looked at the rail, it was like CGI, and I was just like, yeah, I'm not ready for that. Not that I won't try to draw hand draw CGI aspects and all that, but I don't feel like I'm at that level so far. So one of the things I had to get over with real quick with drawing her was the idea of her top half going off the page. I just got over it. I didn't want to proportionally mess her up just so I can fit the top of her head on there. I really like how I did the eyes in this particular case. Let's see here, and this is me doing her clothes, doing some of her clothes. Another thing I found with her reference photos, and they're the ones that I like, they're grainy, so there was a little bit of difficulty making out some of the details. I was able to do the mouth with no fuss. And of course, one of the things I think I would come to realize is that the clothing and her hair is blending in a bit too much. So I go over with her jacket that she's wearing and I darken it so that people say, okay, this is where her hair ends and this is where her clothes begin. And one thing I hadn't noticed while I was drawing, she kind of reminded me of like the 4th Hokage with this white Hokage jacket on before I had shaded in that portion. One of the things I went ahead and did as well is I went ahead and darkened the lines for her face at least, and then go ahead and complete her jacket with this. And really it's just adding in, I add in the dark parts first, and then I believe I would go on to do some shading. And that's a technique I like doing, is just go ahead and draw the entire, as with the jacket pockets, I went ahead and just drew in its entirety rather than proportion, and then just erase it, or just with the shading, go ahead and make it look how it is. And then I go through and start blending in some aspects, showing some light, and there you go. I believe this next one is going to be Blastoise from Pokemon. So obviously here I started with his eyes. This is with the case with, I want to believe, Invincible. He's a character that's facing, you're facing the back, but he's turning his head, sort of like who's behind me, sort of kind of deal. And then I decided to go ahead and work on the shell. I mean, to be honest, the Blastoise character art is probably 80% shell. I went ahead and worked on his water cannon, and I believe I'm going to end up doing another water cannon later on. I think a key to drawing Blastoise is being very comfortable with sort of semi-geometric shapes. And that's the thing with Pokemon, is that they're not very sharp. I think that's what makes them distinct from something like Digimon, which has a lot of sharp features on its higher levels. One thing with Pokemon, at least with its, they're not afraid to keep these sort of rounded shaping on even its more, adult or more mature Pokemon, or the full evolutions, what I meant. Doing some shading on the cannon, and that's not going to be the complete shade. I believe I do go back over and do some blending. And I believe, yeah. And I noticed he has I call it a lip, but I noticed he has like a large lip on his shell, like the border between the segmented part and the underbelly, that border in between. I noticed that was particularly large. And you see me doing some shading and some blending in to sort of show the light source, which from our perspective comes from the top left here. Obviously I want to shade in his shell. I believe in the character art it's brown. One thing I decided not to do when I looked at the character art, the first thing I noticed is that it was like different gradients of brown, and they were in the form of circles, and I'm just like, nah, that's okay. Okay, so in this case the light source actually is coming from the top right. In this case, looking at how I did the shell lighting, me reinforcing the lines. Now I should have redid that can a little bit, but there's our Blastoise. Now here's Wartortle. Can't really say I would change much. Maybe the tip at the bottom of his shell, round it out a little bit more. I really like how this turns out. I think this is my favorite one for this video. Statue of G. Forgot what the Korean translation of the name was. Invincible, who is currently my favorite of the Superman archetype characters. I really like how it turned out, to be honest. Motoko Kusanagi? I think that's how you pronounce her name. I know it's wrong, but Major. I really like how I did the jacket in this one. And then finally Blastoise. Our first order type, part of the first order type Evo line of Pokemon. Alright, thank you guys for showing up. Till next time.